In this video, I'm going to show you how to design a 3D model in virtual reality using Gravity Sketch, and then take that model to your 3D printer and print it out. If you want to know how to do this, stay tuned and I'll be right back. Alright, so at this point I'm standing inside the application called Gravity Sketch, and Gravity Sketch is a modeling application that allows you to create all sorts of models, but in a kind of free form. It's a very organic type of modeling, and the workflow here is very different from the typical CAD program that you would find on a PC. So the first thing I'm going to do is show you how easy it is to create a vase here, a 3D vase that you can print on your printer. So the first thing we're going to do is start a new sketch, and this allows us to use all sorts of tools, and the tool that we're going to be using for the vase is the revolve tool. It's quite powerful, and if you are into making vases, it makes it really easy to create 3D vases. So before I start the revolve tool, I'm just going to change the color that we're working with, and I'll make the color a nice bright blue because it'll be easier to see. Once I've done that, I'm just going to click on the revolve tool twice. And what I'm going to do is set the thickness to full because it'll be easier to see. And I'm just going to push the revolve out a little more so you can see it better. And I'm just going to take the menu here and I will put it somewhere that you can see it. Maybe I'll make it a little bit smaller so it's not so overwhelming. There we go. That's the smallest it can get. And I'll just put it here to the side. There we go. So now I can start making a vase. Now I'm going to change something here. I'm going to put it in the point mode because that works better. And the point mode basically lets me create control points in a very easy way. And control points, when you can see them, it makes it easier. So I prefer working with the point mode. In any event, we simply create the vase by clicking once and starting the vase and moving up and making some sort of a shape that we like. And we can modify this shape later. And I'll show you what I mean. So once you've got a basic shape, you click twice and you've basically now have a vase or something that looks a little bit like a vase. All right, so now that I've got that in place, I'm going to change to the ink mode just because it makes it easier to work. And let me just move this over a little bit, like so. It's very difficult to be in virtual reality and to make this video because I'm dealing here with things that are a little difficult to show live, but it seems to be working okay. So right now I've got what is essentially a 3D model of a vase, but I'm not really keen on how this looks. I want to reshape it into something a little nicer. So the way you do that is by holding onto the vase and clicking the control button on your controller. And once you do that, what you see is that there are control points on the vase that you can work with, okay? And these control points allow you to manipulate how the vase looks. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take these two control points here, which I don't like, and I'm going to delete them because I don't really need them. I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to straighten this out a little bit so it's a little more straight so I can work with it more easily. And then I'm going to hold on to it and click the edit button again. And now we can take these control points and we can edit them in whatever way we want to create our model. So we just move in and touch the control points that we want, and we can manipulate the model so that we get a vase in the shape that we like. So what I think I'm going to do is make this a little narrower, make this a little bit bigger, like that maybe. Make this a little bit bigger or smaller, like this. That. Now, if you're doing something and you're finding that it's not really looking the way you want, you can add more control points that will allow you to manipulate it differently, like this, for example. So it's just a matter of experimenting and creating whatever you like. And it's very, very easy. Once you've got something that you think looks how you want it to look, and you can make it longer, you simply have to save it, export it as an OBJ file, and you can print it out on your 3D printer. The other thing that you can do is, let me just take this, change the look of the model from a rounded vase to a 8-sided vase, or a 4-sided vase, or a square vase. Okay, these are all possible, and you can again manipulate the control points to make it whatever you want. Okay, so there we go, like that, for example, and you've got yourself a pretty good looking vase that is absolutely 3D printable. So creating objects in this virtual environment is very easy, and you know, if you are a person who's more creative and you don't like parametric modeling, or you find it confusing, you like to kind of sculpt things and do things in a much more organic way, then working in Gravity Sketch is something that may be for you. It's very easy in some ways if you've got an artistic bent. All right, so let's say that we want to print this vase. We like the way it looks. The next thing that we need to do is basically save it. So let me just move this out of the way. So the way you save it is by hitting the Save As button, and that brings up another window, and you can save it either on the computer or on the cloud. So I'm just going to save it on my computer. So we go to the Save As option, and we give the vase a name. Right now it's untitled, so we just give it a name that we want. So I'm just going to call this my vase. And when I like the name, I hit the check mark, and the vase is saved on the computer. If I want to export the vase as an OBJ or something that I can print on the 3D printer, I hit the export button here, and this will allow me to export this as an object on my computer, as an OBJ object on the computer. So the way you do that is by hitting the check mark here, like so. This will bring up a menu again, or a keyboard again, and you can just save it with the name that you gave it before, or you can give it another name. I'm just going to save it with my vase. Hit the check mark, and now you've got a OBJ object that you can print on your 3D printer. So I'm going to close the menu. I'm going to click the X here. That basically tells you where the object is saved. So it's saved in the exported sketches folder on the computer. We'll go over there and we'll take a look. Click the X, and you've got yourself a vase that you can 3D print. All right, so if you want to do something more than just make a vase, you can do that in Gravity Sketch. And what I'm going to take you through right now is how you can model a more complicated object in this environment. Now, one thing that is really important to note is that you know, if you are artistically inclined, if you are good at drawing, then you're going to do really well in this environment. Unfortunately, I am not one of those people. So my artistic abilities are rather limited, unfortunately. So I'm going to show you something very, very basic. And you're going to have to forgive me for my lack of artistry. So the way we begin, if we want to create something a little more sophisticated, is by, again, hitting the option for all the tools. And what we're going to do now is go to the primitive objects menu, because here we've got a whole bunch of different things that we can use to create all sorts of models. Now, the really exciting thing that you can find here is the subdivision object option. Sub D is a kind of modeling, and I'm going to show you how you can use it to create something really easily. Now, another thing before I show you that is really great here is that you can actually bring a file, an image from the outside world into the virtual environment that you can use as a guide for your model. So I'm going to do that by opening up this menu and going to the reference images option. And the reference image that I'm going to use is this little dog robot. So you click on it, you bring it out, and once it's in the virtual environment, you can take it and you can enlarge it to whatever size you want. And you can put it to the side because you can use that as a reference for your 3D modeling. All right, so what I'm going to do here is use the cube to try to model something that looks like this. I'm not going to walk you through every step because it's going to be boring, but I'll just speed up the video and show you how it works. But I'll just take you through the preliminaries to give you a sense of what you need to do. So the first thing that I'm going to do is use a cube. And the other thing that I'm going to do is use the mirror tool. And so the way you do that is by clicking on the options menu here and going to settings and clicking on the mirror setting. And the reason I'm using the mirror setting is because I want both sides of the dog to be symmetrical. So I'm only going to model one side at a time, and then the final dog will be symmetrical. So let me click on the mirror setting here, and you'll see that there's a mirror here that I can use. And whenever I make something, that mirror is used to mirror to the other side. So any object that you create is essentially mirrored. So let me show you how that works. So let's say that I'm going to create a cube here that is going to be a sub D cube. So you click on sub D, and then you create the cube. Let me just do that here. I'm going to create a cube like so. And what you'll notice is that the cube, and I'm going to move the mirror here somewhere so you can see it better. You can see that the cube is basically mirrored. And that means that you can easily create a symmetrical object. Okay, so no matter what you do on one side, if you take the mirror and you make it large on one side, it becomes large on the other side. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to use this cube as a way to create the dog. Now, the sub D option is really important, so let me show you how that works. Basically, sub D allows you to divide the cube into different parts. So if I click on this, and interestingly enough, we've got all the control points. You can see the control points here, and we use the control points to subdivide the object. So if I want, I can make it, different things like this. Okay, so you can see I can easily subdivide the object and sculpt whatever I want out of it. And that's what I'm going to do to sculpt the dog. Okay, so when I click on the edit option, again, I can start subdividing this in all sorts of different ways, and it actually attaches itself to the other side if you want to do that. So let's say I want to do this. So it all connects and you've got one piece, okay? So this is a very powerful tool to make whatever you want, and when you're done, you just click OK, and you've got yourself a symmetrical object that looks the same on both sides. All right, so what I'm going to do here is speed up the video, and I'll try to sculpt this dog. All right, so there is my dog. Now it doesn't look exactly the same as this image, but you know, it's not bad. But what I was trying to do is basically show you the power of sub-D editing. Now I'm by no means an artist, so this is not very good. And if you're a true artist, you can do a lot better. Now, one thing I want to show you before I export this to print is that you can create a sub-D object that is more organic in shape. So right now it's very blocky and square-like, which is fine because this is supposed to be a robot dog, so I'm going to leave it like that. But if you're inclined to make it more rounded and more organic, there is a button here to turn on the subdivision level. So you can make it quite rounded, like this, or you can make it even more rounded, so you can turn up the subdivision level and it's more rounded now, and you can make it even more rounded. Now, you'd have to play around with this to make it look proportional and right. Right now it looks a little off, but there's a lot of power in subdivision editing if you want to create organic shapes. So I'm going to turn it off because I want the blocky look. I prefer that. So I'm going to leave it as it is right now. So I'm just going to export this to the computer, and then we'll try to save it if possible, and print it out as a 3D print. So it's going to be a little tricky because of the way that there's a lot of overhangs here, but still we can give it a shot and see if it works. Now, you know, one thing I might do here is put a little bit of a loop here so that I can use it as a keychain. So I'm going to do that very quickly by going to the primitive objects and choosing the torus object, and I'm going to just change the color here. So let me just do that. I'm going to go and change the color to what this is. So there we go. And then we take the torus object here and we make a little torus that we're going to put on the head. So let's just do that like this. And we can make this smaller like that, and we can just put it here so that there's room to hang a keychain on there if you want to use it as a keychain like that. And if you want, you can just merge it with the rest of the model. There's a little merge option, so we do that, and now we've got ourselves a little doggy with a little loop on the head that we can use as a keychain. All right, so I'm going to export this out, and I'll meet you at the computer. Move that over here. I'll meet you at the computer where we can try to basically print this out on the 3D printer. Okay, so now it's time to bring the models that we created in virtual reality into the slicer and then export it to the printer. So I'm going to start with the vase and then I'll go to the dog. So I'm just going to bring the OBJ file that I created in Gravity Sketch into Cura. This, by the way, is Cura version 5. And we will slice it so that it will be printed as a vase. Now, if I slice it just the way it is right now, it'll slice fine, but it won't be a vase because, as you may recall, we created a fully filled model in Gravity Sketch, so it's not going to export as a vase. So the way to export a model as a vase is by using the spiralize mode in Cura. I'm going to show you how to do that, but I'm actually not going to use that mode because it's not the best mode to use to actually print a vase. So if you want to use the spiralize mode, that's fine. The way you get there is just by putting in spiralize in the search field. And it is a special mode. You check it, and the model will slice in a mode that will be a vase. So it'll be completely hollow, and it will work as a vase. The problem with the spiralize mode, though, is that it is just one wall thick. So it's very thin, and generally it doesn't really work all that well as a vase. It prints very quickly, so this model will take 1 hour and 23 minutes to print, which is nothing, but it won't really be a very good vase. So I prefer another way to do it. So I'm just going to turn off the spiralize outer contour option because I think there's a better way to get a vase that is more than just one wall thick. And the way I do it is by, first of all, going to the top-bottom option here, and I will make the top surface skin layer 0, and then I will make the top thickness 0, which will also make the top layers 0. I will change the infill density, so go down to infill and change the density from 20% to 0. And finally, it's best to hide the seam, because one of the problems with printing this way is that there's a possibility that you may see the seam. But in Cura version 5, the seam is hidden really well. So if you just look for seam, it will give you the option to hide seam here. So seam corner preference is what you want, and then choose hide seam. And then when you slice the model, you'll see that we've got a vase that is actually now 3 layers thick, as opposed to just 1 layer with the spiralized mode. So you're going to get a much better, if we zoom in more closely, you can see that we've got 3 layers as opposed to the 1 layer with the spiralized mode. So you're going to get a much better looking vase. All right, so I'm just going to save this project as a Cura project, and then I'll go on to the dog. I'm just going to save it on the desktop, and we'll move on to the next model. All right, so the next model that we're going to bring in is the dog, and the dog is a little more tricky, so we're going to have to work a little bit to figure out how to print this. So let me just go to my dog and bring it into the slicer, and I'm going to just turn it around so that it's easier to see. So let me just turn it like that. Now, the problem with this is that it requires a lot of support. Typically, it's not a great idea to design objects for 3D printing that require a lot of support, but in this case, I wasn't really thinking of that, so we're going to have to give this model some support for it to print properly. So let's just search for support here, and we're going to go to generate support. By default, it's not turned on, so we're going to turn it on. And here's the thing. We're going to have to figure out what kind of support we're going to use. So normal is the default. We're not going to use normal. We're going to use tree support, because tree support makes it a lot easier to remove the support after the print is done. So if we slice this, it's going to generate the support. And let's just see what it looks like. So it's going to take 1 hour and 33 minutes to print. If we do a preview, we can see what the tree support looks like. And the problem with the tree support, as it is right now, is that there's a lot of it. It's using up a lot of material. So one thing that's best to do is to try to minimize the amount of material that the support uses. The other problem with the model placed as it is that if I go down, you'll notice that the legs of the model are printing with very little sort of wall adhesion. You can see that the walls here are very small, and they're not going to adhere very well. So there's a very good chance that when I print it this way, the legs will just break in two, or break very easily. So a better thing to do is to actually put the dog on its side, which is what I'm going to do. I will put it on its side like this, and if we slice it, you'll notice first of all that actually it takes less time to print, but also if we do a preview, there's actually less support that's being used, and it looks like it's going to be easier to take off. And more importantly, the legs are going to be printed in a way that the walls are actually longer, and they're printing horizontally, which means that the legs are going to be a lot stronger. So this is the best way to print the dog and have it actually work. Because again, as I said, ideally you print a 3D model without any supports. So you try to design models that don't need supports. But if a model needs a support, it's really important to think about how you use the support to maximize the strength of the model, as well as using as little extra material as possible, which is what I'm trying to do here. So this model will take 1 hour and 16 minutes. What I'm going to do is save it as a project, and I'm going to now send these projects to the printer. We'll see how it prints, and when it's done, we'll come back and we'll take a look at the final product and see how well they turned out. All right, so now that the print is done, we can take a look at it and assess how well it worked. So we can start off with the vase, and I think that the vase turned out very well. I think it looks great. There's no seam anywhere. It's fairly strong, and you can actually use it as a vase, maybe put a flower in it. I think it looks really, really good. As far as the dog is concerned, I think it turned out better than expected. I did need to pull off the supports. I'm not going to take you through that, but I will say that it was pretty easy, and I really didn't have a lot of difficulty with it. And the legs are actually pretty strong, considering how thin they are. So I think it turned out remarkably good considering. Okay, so that's it for this video. It turned out that it's a fairly long one. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that if you have an opportunity, you'll use Gravity Sketch, because it works really well for 3D printing. But more importantly, it's actually a lot of fun. There's nothing like being in a virtual world, sculpting away, making something from your imagination, and then taking it out into the real world and printing it. And I don't think I mentioned this yet, but Gravity Sketch is absolutely free. So you can download it, install it either on your PC if you've got a tethered virtual reality headset, or if you use the Quest and it's untethered, you can just download it for the Quest, and it works on either platform. So, if you can, give it a try. Anyway, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, remember to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. It really helps me a lot if you subscribe to the channel. It motivates me to make more videos. I really enjoy making videos, but I enjoy it even more when I know that people are getting something out of the videos that I make. So until next time, take care. Go out and do some 3D printing, go out and do some designing, create some models, and most importantly, go out and have some fun. So until next time, take care, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.